Hi there, my name's Ross Mackenzie and I am the author of The Colour of Hope. So, what inspired The Colour of Hope is a good question. The idea was in my head for a long time. Authors were often asked where ideas come from. And honestly, I don't know. I don't like to think about it too much in case the ideas stop coming to me. A little bit, I guess you could say I'm a little bit superstitious that way. So anyway, the idea came to me a good few years ago. And I just sort of let it bubble away and simmer away. And then eventually a few years ago, it was time to write the story. The story sort of kept nagging away at me and demanding, coming back every little once in a while and saying, when are you going to write me? And then finally, a couple of years back, I thought, okay, it's time. It's time to write this story because I knew there'd be challenges in this story. Challenges in terms of describing a world, writing about a world in which there is no colour. And I think during lockdown, it sort of added layers to the inspiration behind the idea for this world without colour. Because if you think about it, during lockdown, during the various lockdowns that we had, many of the freedoms and the lovely things that we took for granted were sort of taken away from us. And we were living in a way, in a world where a lot of the colour had been stripped away from us, had been taken from us. And so that added another layer of inspiration and another layer of, I guess, another way of thinking about the story. And so that sort of all came together, I think, at the right time and inspired me to really go for it with this book. We have two main characters, real main characters in the book, Hope and Sandy. Now, Hope is a girl and she is a miracle child. She is born at the beginning of the book. Now, this world, I should tell you, is a world of black and white and shades of grey. We have an emperor who, for reasons that become evident through the book, he has stolen the colour from the world and he keeps it locked away in a magical fire in his palace. And so the people have lived in this world, the Dominion, for a long time, for a couple of generations without any colour. So there are children and there are even grown-ups in this world who have never seen colour before. And then Hope comes along. And Hope is a baby girl born in this black and white world and born in colour, born in perfect colour. Now the emperor has made it illegal, highly illegal, to even talk about colour, to even whisper about colour to your neighbour, to anyone. You can end up in jail or worse for even mentioning colour. But when Hope comes along, things start to change. You can imagine how much danger Hope's in from the moment she takes her first breath. But word of this rainbow child spreads around the Dominion. And hope, a different kind of hope, starts to flourish. And people start to whisper about colour. And they start to have hope again. And this sort of, I guess you would call it, a rebellion starts, all because Hope has been born. And the entire story is all about Hope and her fate dragging her towards this final showdown with the Emperor. And that's The Colour of Hope. So I'd like to read you a little bit about it now. The Emperor's dominion is large and rambling, stretching as far as the eye can see and beyond in every direction. There are snow-capped mountains and winding rivers, patchwork crop fields, towns and villages, both pretty and ramshackle. There are shadows and things that live in them. But mostly there is forest, grey and sprawling and colourless. Look, see there, far below, where the road cuts through the trees like the gouge from a giant's blade. Something is moving along that road, a travelling caravan pulled by a handsome Shire horse. Upon the wagon, clutching the reins, sits Sandy Burns. Beside him is a small girl with a serious face. Her name is Hope. "Are you still sulking, lassie?" Sandy says with a sideways glance. She doesn't answer, folding her little arms across her body and jutting out a shining bottom lip. Sandy shakes his head. "Well, you sulk all you want and see how that works out for you." "You shouted at me," she says at last, still not looking at him, shouted. Sandy almost falls off his seat. Crivens, you can hardly blame me. We'll never be able to go back to that town. It's town, she tells him. We'll never be able to go back to that town. Oliver is teaching me to speak proper, like him. He says I should enunciate. This time it's Sandy's lip that juts out. Oh, aye, and who is Oliver to decide which way of speaking is proper? Anyway, don't change the subject. What you did back there was not acceptable. We're drifter mages. Our job is to help folk. We're not supposed to get involved in the politics of any place, and that means you don't go turning people into pigs, especially mayors. He was very rude to you, Hope says. Sandy tries to keep his expression serious, but he feels it soften. Well, aye, he was. Some people tend to turn nasty when they realise we can't solve all their problems with magic. But I would have handled it. You can't go turning everyone who is rude to you into an animal. If you did that, there'd be no people left. She looks at him and blows a raspberry. In my opinion, comes a smooth voice from the caravan, it wouldn't be so bad if all the people in the world became animals. In fact, I think it would be somewhat of an improvement. A small, scruffy black dog appears in the open doorway, sits, yawns. Sandy casts a sharp look over his shoulder. Don't you go encouraging her. I thought you were supposed to be man's best friend. The dog makes a movement that might be a shrug. That depends on the man.